Welcome and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode for the duration of today's session. Today's webinar is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now, I'd like to turn the call over to your host, Kim Brown. Kim, you may begin.
Thank you, Anthony. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on statistics in schools and overview. My name is Kim Brown, and I'm a training specialist here at the U.S. Census Bureau. I want to thank you for joining us today for its All in the Tools webinar series. The new series was created by the Census Bureau. You can register for any of the workshop webinars by accessing census.gov. We will post the workshops monthly for early registration. Just visit census.gov/academy. Please note the seating is limited, so first come, first served basis. We think these hands-on exercise-based workshops will be a valuable opportunity for you to learn from our experts about how to access the Census Bureau's data tools and resources. If you wish to follow along, take a moment now to open an additional browser to participate in the exercises. Before I introduce today's speaker, let's go over a few important housekeeping rules. As mentioned earlier, this webinar is being recorded. For your convenience, it will be uploaded to our Census Academy site with all supplemental materials relating to the webinar within 30 business days. In terms of how to ask questions during the webinar, you can submit your written questions using the Q&A panel, which is at the bottom center or the right side of your WebEx screen. Please take a moment to locate that now. Once you found the Q&A panel, make sure you choose All Panelists from the drop-down menu. This will ensure we see your question. Don't send your question to an individual panelist. We also ask that you do not include any personal or business identifiable information with your questions. Now let's talk about the chat panel. Look for that on your screen now. It's probably right next to the QA panel. Definitely keep that chat panel open also, because this is where we will provide key links and other resources. Keep in mind, you won't be able to respond to the chat. Chat is just for us to send you links and other resources. In the chat box, we will be sharing throughout the webinar the link for our evaluation. We are very interested in hearing from you on how we are doing. My colleagues, Lynette Swoops, Nicole McKenzie, and Jessica Palmer will be monitoring the QA panel. As time allows, we will answer your question directly through the QA panel, or we will share your question with the presenter to respond to throughout the workshop. If we don't get to all questions with a response during the webinar, we will post the questions and responses with the webinar materials on the census.gov/academy site within 30 business days. Again, as mentioned before, near the end of the webinar, we will put into the chat a link to our evaluation so you can tell us how we did today. We hope you'll take the time to complete, as we are always looking for ways to improve our training. As you know, we are in a virtual environment, and sometimes technical difficulties might occur. If you are having issues, try a different browser such as Chrome, or consider logging out and coming back into the session. If you have audio issues, try selecting the computer audio or calling into the webinar via phone. Now, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today, Lacey Lofton. Thanks again for being with us, Lacey. You may begin.
Thank you, Kim. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I am very excited to be giving this presentation. As Kim mentioned, if you have questions or anything that you need clarification on, I'm happy to answer any questions during the presentation. We'll make sure that all these resources are available after the fact as well, so you don't have to feel like you need to, be frantically taking notes on any of this. And luckily, the Statistics in School webpage, which is what we'll be focusing most of our time on today, is really user-friendly. I feel like the team there did an amazing job of just making everything really easy to access, really understandable about how things connect. So hopefully this will be a fun, easy process for everyone. First up, I am part of the Data Dissemination Training Branch. Some of you may have seen us. We're spread out throughout the country. I am physically located just outside of Austin, Texas, but I have colleagues near where you are. So if you would ever like another presentation, either about statistics in schools or anything else that the Census Bureau, any of our products, any of our tools, if you just need more information, we have somebody near you who is an expert in your specific area. So we are here to bring data to you. We are free. You've already funded this with your tax dollars, so we are available at no cost to either give a presentation to your business or organization. We also have a lot of resources online. So if at 2 a.m. you're looking for something, we have some online resources that can help you find things. We have data gems, which are really short how-to videos on how to access different data tools, some basic information about our surveys and the data that we collect. We also have really in-depth courses. So this is a webinar. It's going to be about an hour and a half. We have lots of these posted on our webpage, but we also have some that are like, hours broken in different hours on, say, SAS or doing things in different, statistical software. We also, like I said, we can come in person. If we're close to your area, we can do another webinar for your organization if you have some specific needs that aren't addressed here today. So this is how you can get in touch with our branch. I'm going to give you my contact information and direct contact information to Statistics in Schools later, but this is how you would reach my colleagues and myself across the nation. This is me. I am a statistician with the United States Census Bureau. We were just joking about before we started this. I just started my 20th year here, which seems pretty crazy. I've done a bunch of different things, but specifically related to this presentation, I was lucky enough to spend a couple years with my colleague Jessica and Vicki, who are on the call, working with the Statistics in Schools program. And this is a program that has evolved over time. We're going to walk through that too, but it's really close to my heart. I think that there's some really great opportunities here. And we'll walk through those, but I'm excited to be presenting today. Okay, so our objectives for the next hour and say 15 minutes. The first thing is I want everyone here to understand the scope and the purpose of the Statistics in Schools program. This program has a lot of amazing materials. We are unfortunately not going to have time to go through all of them, every resource, every activity today. But I do want you to know, what in general is available, how to find it, so that you can go explore that on your own. And I want to make sure too that everyone leaves today knowing how to effectively not just access them, but really utilize them. I want you to be able to walk away from this with action items, something you can take directly into your classroom, into your homes with your children. And actually, I use a lot of these activities even when explaining different data and statistics to adults in the presentations that I give to different organizations. We're going to have a live demonstration. That's going to be the vast majority of our time today. And then we're also on the Statistics in Schools webpage. We're also going to have a couple of knowledge checks throughout just to make sure that we're all on the same page. And for the first time, we're going to ask everyone to put their answers in the Q&A. And if you include your email address in the Q&A, which will just come to us, it won't be public, I'm going to send these really cute promotional stickers we have for data.census.gov and iHeartCensus data that you can put on your laptop, put on your coffee mug, something along those lines. So hopefully that'll keep everyone engaged and make it a little more fun. Okay, so the outline. We're going to talk about Statistics in Schools, where it came from, why we have it. We are going to walk through the activities and different options that we have there. We're going to look at all of the resources that are available on our webpage. We'll do the live demo, which will be, again, most of the time we spend today. We'll go through 3 practice exercises, and then after we do those exercises, we'll look in depth at the resources that we explored with those exercises, and then we'll take questions. Again, I'm happy to take questions throughout the presentation, but we'll save some time at the end to make sure that we get everything answered. Okay, the Statistics in Schools program. There was a really cool evolution of how this program came to be. It was originally a program that was used as a promotion for the decennial census. Every 10 years, I'm sure most of you know this, we do a head count of the entire country, both housing and humans. And one of the ways that we were trying to get the word out about the census and its importance, and, please respond, this is something that's good for your community, was by having resources available to schools, to teachers, to students. And actually, historically, children, especially children under the age of 5, are one of our most undercounted populations. So that was a really great way for us to be able to reach out, but also, hopefully share some resources, share some statistics that would be useful. Because it was such a hit, and now we have this really cool thing called the internet, we were able to make it an evergreen program. So now, instead of just kind of popping up every 10 years since the 2010 census, we've had these resources available online, and they are available to you year-round. So that's how we got to where we are. It used to be called Census in Schools. We've switched it over to Statistics in Schools. And while it is certainly a statistics, based program, there's lots of other subjects that it covers as well. We'll talk about that. The main benefits for teachers, I am not a teacher. I substitute at my son's school as much as I possibly can when I'm taking leave from this job. But these are really cool activities that were developed by teachers for teachers. And I can tell you, we've worked with hundreds of teachers across the country to develop these and to give user feedback and testing to make sure that they were something that was really easy to implement in a classroom. It was really meeting the needs of teachers and students and making it easy for everyone to use these products. The other thing is they're free. They're available online, so you can access them at any time. If you're kind of last minute desperate to supplement a lesson plan that you have the next day, you can find these at any point through our website. Also, these are, I'm sure this is kind of obvious. These are here to supplement your lesson plans and your curriculum that already exist. They should be easy to just add in. We have, longer, shorter, different levels of activities. So hopefully we can find a place to fit these into your lesson plans and your existing curriculum. Certainly for students, I have a 7-year-old. I was just talking to my colleague about her 3-year-old. These are things that we use at home as well. My son actually loves these, and I'm probably biased, but he really does. It's a really good way to bring in STEM and statistics into the students, kind of making it relatable and useful for students. I remember being the kid always asking, when am I ever going to use this? Luckily, using real world statistics, I think, makes it very understandable for people to say, oh, that's why, this number matters. Hopefully these lessons, these activities do that. But it certainly will help, prepare students for college and careers, especially if they're looking at something more STEM-based. We really do cover almost every subject you can come up with. I said that to my son recently, and he said, what about PE? We actually do have a couple things that you could probably utilize in a PE setting. And luckily, the real life data really makes it useful. I hated in school, which now seems like a very long time ago, having these examples of John has 3 apples, Joseph has 4 apples, making these, just really arbitrary, not real life data sets. And here we use real life data that applies to kids at different ages and different levels. All right, the biggest and most exciting thing, in my opinion, from the Statistics in Schools program are the activities. So these are different lengths, but they are really in-depth, fully put together, ready-to-use resources. So you can access we're going to walk through this live, but our activities are broken down into math, history, English, geography, and sociology. But you can also search for them by grade level. So if you are a kindergarten teacher, or if you are teaching, high school calculus, you can go and sort and really narrow in on what you're looking for. We actually recently added pre-K materials as well. So just depending on what you're looking for, we have something that will suit your needs there, hopefully. And our our resources. So our activities and our resources in a lot of ways really do complement each other. I think one of the strengths of this program is how it really ties different things together. So it ties together our data tools, it ties together these activities. But we'll walk through our resource page. The first two on this list are the Census Bureau's kind of bread and butter. The census data is used for apportionment, so certainly we have a lot of information about apportionment, the history of, and more current data as well. So we have a whole page dedicated to that. We have Constitution Day. One of my favorite facts is one of the few things that the U.S. government is required to do is take a census. So it is in the Constitution. We've been doing it since 1790. There are a lot of resources there as well. We're going to talk about data access tools, 4 different tools specifically that weren't specifically made just for children. They were made for data users in general, but they're very user-friendly depending on the age of your students, the level of, how often they use a computer and different things like that. You'll find one that fits in. And a lot of times the activities use those data sources. So we'll talk about those. Fun facts are fun facts. They're usually a 2-pager that relate to a holiday or some event that's coming up. So you can just kind of work those in. We'll talk about we have a Mother's Day example, an Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month that we'll talk about as well. There are games. The Census Bureau is getting really cool. We've got these interactive online games. We'll walk through a few of those as well. The historical documents and images, as I mentioned, we've been doing this for a little bit. So we've been doing this since 1790. We have maps going all the way back to 1790. So there are some really cool resources there that are great for analysis, that are great for looking at, what was at one point in time, but also doing a comparison kind of in a time series. Kahoot games, this is actually something I just learned about. Thank you, Jessica, for walking me through all of this. I did not know about Kahoot. I learned about it a couple weeks ago and have absolutely fallen in love with it. I'm sure most of you who are in education know about these, but we have specific census Kahoot games, and we're going to play one together today. The winners of that will also get Census Bureau stickers, so get excited about that. We have a section about learning about the decennial census. Certainly the biggest part of our job is the decennial census, and not only how do we collect the data, but how do we tabulate it, how do we publish it, and what is it used for? Maps. I unfortunately feel like maps and geography is something that gets really overlooked often, and they are the baseline of all of our data. It's not just that people live in the U.S., it's where people live in the U.S. So we have lots of awesome maps, time series there as well. We're going to spend a lot of time on the monthly highlights page here. The nice thing is we have all these resources, which can sometimes be a little overwhelming, right? When you're looking, you've got 100 activities, like which one should we be using? The monthly highlights, which also will come out in our newsletter that I'll ask you to sign up for, will highlight things that are, applicable to the current month. So we've got Bike to Work, National Bike to Work Month coming up. Again, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, Mother's Day. So this will kind of put all the resources that would be easy to integrate into a month, just with a normal schedule, into those monthly highlights. We have videos. Some of these help you with implementing some of this into your lesson plan. Some of it explains statistical concepts. We have a really cool one about apportionment, and there's lots and lots of videos. We'll talk about that too. Visualizations. Data's a lot cooler than it was when I was, in school 20-something years ago now. It's a lot more interesting to look at data from a visualization standpoint sometimes than just looking at a spreadsheet. We have lots of those that we'll share. And then we'll look at warm-up activities where the lesson, the activities can be like an hour long. These warm-up activities are usually about 5 minutes, so they're quick and easy to bring into a classroom. Okay, we're going to do a live demonstration now. This is the website. It should be pretty easy for you to find. If you forget this or you don't write it down, if you Google statistics in schools, it will probably be the first thing that your search engine brings up, but make sure you include census. So statistics in schools census. But yes, census.gov/schools. And this is what our landing page looks like. It is a really easy page to navigate. There are just 4 main tabs. Like I said, most of these things tie together. So we'll walk through this together. We'll go through every single thing in depth, and we'll do some exercises to make sure that everybody understands the navigation. I will answer questions as we go, and then hopefully you'll be able to walk away with a lot of things that are just ready to use immediately. Here are the activities I was just talking about. So again, we have math, history and social studies, geography, sociology, and English. We also have them broken down by grades as well. If you click on the activities overview, it's going to show basically the same thing. So if you know exactly what you're looking for, you can certainly pull from that drop-down menu. But if you come here to this landing page, it'll tell you a little bit more about each of them. For me, it was fun, but a little surprising that some of these, statistical concepts were worked into some of these other subjects. So this will tell you a little bit about how they can be used and how they're applied. So math, history, English, geography, sociology. Here's your breakdown by grade. So we have pre-K materials, your K through 2, so your very young kids, slightly later elementary, and then depending on where you live, either middle school or junior high, and then high school as well. State Facts for Students is down here at the bottom, and it is a really cool tool. I'm actually going to walk you through this one as well, because I think it does a really good job of demonstrating one of our tools and the activities surrounded by it. And it's very popular. It's really easy to use and really fun for really kids of all different ages. So State Facts for Students. There's too many S's in this presentation. I feel like I'm going to stumble all over myself all day. I'm in Texas, so I'm going to be biased and pull up Texas here. Figure with this many people on the call, probably some of you are in Texas as well. We're a big state with a lot of people. If you click on Texas, then we click on, thinking for a second, we click on Go. And the first thing it'll do is bring up this really nice, it makes a really nice printout. I'll show you how to download it. Just an overview of the state facts. So a lot of them are data driven, but we also make it human friendly by adding in some just fun stuff. So you've obviously got the population, people per square mile, but then you also have some basic information about, what's the largest city, what's the capital city, what's the second largest. Over under the, I never knew that, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Under the I never knew that, Texas is the Lone Star State. I did know that. Bluebonnet is a state flower. The state tree is the pecan. The state bird is a mockingbird. The state mammal is an armadillo, and I did not know that. And the state sport is a rodeo, which I did not know, but seems to make sense. We have the population change over time. So, most states across the country have been growing, but you can see how quickly that happened. Information about how people get to work, which is always a big hit with kids. And then this tool was really built for mostly kids between the ages of 8 and 14. Like I said, I think it really is applicable to most ages. But here's your breakdown of how many kids within that age are in the state. So something that's hopefully really relatable. We have information about computer use. I know that my 7-year-old is very into his tablets and his computer access. So another thing that's probably relatable. And then businesses that we thought, would be interesting to children as well. So how many amusement parks, how many toy stores, how many ice cream, I think that's in this one, yeah. Ice cream and frozen dessert makers are in the businesses in the states, and those changes over time. If you want to download this is how you can do it. You can download this as a PDF or an image. Like I said, it makes a really nice printout. If you want to hand this out to kids, if you're going to use it in activity or something like that, this is the way to do it. If you're sharing it in class, you could certainly use this to maximize it. I want to show you another way that you can look at this same data, though, especially if you're going to be using it in your classroom. So if you're going to be projecting this on a screen, again, this makes a really nice handout the way that this is set up. But if you're projecting it on a screen and want to make it a little more interesting, we have State Facts Explorer. It's right here. You can also access it from that main page that I was on earlier. Here we go. Census Bureau loves its surveys, even when you're on our webpage. So we'll see that pop up every now and then. But here's Texas, obviously. But each of these icons will pop up with the same facts that we just saw a moment ago, but it's a little more interactive. It's a little more interesting visually for if you're standing in front of a classroom. So here's your history. When did Texas become a state? Here's your population change. Oh, scrolling down, you've got your largest city, your capitals. Here's the breakdown of children by age. And then here's your, I never knew that. If you click on these other icons as you drive down that cute little street, which is perfectly paved, I guess we didn't want to necessarily make, it's this perfectly paved road, and you click on any or hover over any of these other icons, it'll end up showing you all of the different data we just saw on the, basically this one pager. And then if you want to get back to the one pager, you can always do that here too. But I wanted to make sure that you saw both of those options. If we scroll down here, and this is, again, you're going to see this throughout. You'll see a resource, and then you'll see the activities associated, or you'll see the, activity, and then the resources associated. And I think we've done a really good job of making that very clear and easy throughout this web page. But for example, so just so you'll see this, you'll see this other places as well. But here are activities using this resource. So you have change in my state, which is looking at, different data points for within the state, the place of my state, using fractions to compare amusement parks, always fun. Comparing my state, this is actually one of my favorite activities because you have your state, but then the kids can pick another state that's interesting to them and then see how those two different states compare. It's a comparison, it's analysis, but it's pretty straightforward. And again, really good for kids of all ages. You could look at numbers of births using line graphs, scavenger hunts, Gina the geographer, who I'm looking forward to seeing in person someday because I feel positive it was named after someone at the Census Bureau. And then numbers tell a story. So again, very compact, very easy. Here's your tool, here's your activity. Okay, back up here under, so that was activities. Like I said, I'm not going to walk through each of these different sections. You probably know what you're looking for. When you come to this webpage, it'll be very easy to find each of these. We are going to go in depth, step-by-step through an activity here in a little bit, but it's like I said, it's a very easy navigation. I do want to show you what the sections look like, so we'll just click on math really quickly. And we'll come up with math worksheets. And then you've got all of the activities listed first. And then if you want to break it down by grade, you do so here. So I'll pick the very first one just to give you a quick overview of what the activities look like. You'll have the activity description, and this is really where you can find out, this is going to pop up all day. This is really where you can find out if it's something that applies to what you're studying or if it's, it's the right fit for your students. It has suggested grade level, approximate time, learning objectives. It also has Bloom's taxonomy and the skills taught here. The materials required are always listed. And, they're usually pretty simple things. They're things that should be in your classroom or kids should have at home. And then activity items. This is where you would download either the teacher version or the student version. Again, we're going to go through one of these step by step in a little bit, but I just wanted you to see an overview of what these activities look like. Okay, so that's it for activities. Let's move on to resources. And again, these are all very closely related. The resources oftentimes will complement or be worked into an activity, just they're literally, linked or have a section that apply to them. I'm going to go through each and every single one of these and just tell you what's here. And then when you're exploring on your own, you can see what best applies to you. Apportionment resources, as I mentioned, that's kind of the Census Bureau's bread and butter. So we have a whole page dedicated to it, and it's a really rich place with a lot of really cool materials. So what is apportionment? Here's just your very basics. We have a fact sheet that makes a really nice printout or download if you want to download it and email it to your kids, depending on how old they are and what kind of access they have to computers or tablets. Here's a interactive historical and apportionment map. So you can see how the seats apportioned within the House changed over time, how they were distributed among the states. And then there's a warm-up activity over here that complements that as well. There are lots of classroom activities that relate to apportionment. Those are all laid out here. And then my very favorite, here's your warm-up activities, and these are all awesome. And then my very favorite video here as well. This amazing apportionment machine video does a better job of explaining how seats are apportioned among the states than any history professor I ever had explained it. So I love this one. There's a lot of great videos, and we'll see them as we go through the different topics. To get back to the top, you can either scroll or click this fancy little button there. But that was the first one, apportionment resources. Constitution Day is really similar. It has a little bit more about the verbiage in the Constitution that authorizes the decennial census to happen, but then it kind of quickly ties back into apportionment. They're very closely related. Data access tools. Let's look at this one. I think this is going to be something that will come up throughout the conversation today. There are 4 main data tools that will be used throughout with these different activities and lessons, and that are really going to be useful for you and your students. First, we have some guides. So here's your teacher guide to data access. This is a great resource. Again, I use this outside of education when I'm giving presentations to different groups. This really does a great job of kind of outlining what each of these tools does, when you might use them, when they might be most useful. There's another thing on Teach with Data, and then we've got State Facts for Students. And here are the main data tools that we were talking about. So quick facts, there are, and I should mention too, there are webinars about each of these individual data tools. So we're not going to speak about them too much today, but you can absolutely go to Census Academy and find in-depth, hour-and-a-half presentations on any of these. So quick facts is just what it sounds like. It's really quick. You pick your state or you pick your city, and it'll pull data from the different surveys and censuses we do and give you an overview of your area. So say you live in, for example, Austin, Texas, and you want your students to be able to compare Austin, Texas to, let's say, Chicago, Illinois. You can just pull that up. It'll have information about businesses, houses, humans, transportation, employment, and you can really do an easy, step-by-step comparison. You can also use states. It includes a lot of different geography options. Data.census.gov, many of you are probably familiar with this one. It's our main data platform. So this is where we put most of the 130 surveys and censuses that we do. This is our main data hub here. It's not the flashiest, it's not the fanciest, it's not the most exciting of our data tools probably, but it's really solid. It produces really great tables. It has a really great mapping feature now, in case you haven't been there for a while. It has that. So it's really where, if you're looking for data, especially if you are working with older kids, so high school kids, this is probably where you're going to send them. It has pretty much all of the data you could possibly want and probably a little bit more. Its counterpart, Census Business Builder, is flashy. This one's really fun. It has a really cool mapping tool. It does a really cool 13-page report with charts and graphs, and it's like the very cool version of census data. It has actually been updated recently, so that's another one. If you haven't used this tool recently, I would encourage you to come back and give it another look. It even has more interesting tools and features than it used to, and it was pretty cool to start with. So those are the 3 main that we're going to talk about. There are a couple others down here as well. We have My Congressional District. It's just a little more specific. We have American Community Survey, which just has some information about the ACS there, and then Statistics in Schools is going to be your slide rule over here. Okay, any questions, guys? We're still good? I haven't heard Anthony's voice, so I'm assuming we're still good to go. All right, so we're going back to resources here. So that was your data access tools. Here's your list of fun facts. These are my 7-year-old's absolutely favorite, and my mother's too. My mom, who is kind of data averse, and maybe it's because I talk about it so much, actually loves these, especially when it's about her. So Mother's Day coming up. But this is, most of these are tied to a holiday or an appreciation week or something else that's coming up. We will usually have them in order of the most recent or most upcoming event or date. So here we have Asian American, Native, Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. We have Mother's Day. We're going to go actually into those 2 in depth in just a few minutes. Earth Day fun facts is a great one that actually applies kind of any time. Women's History Month, St. Patrick's Day. I think you can get the idea here. We got African American Black History Month. We have one for, you know, all of the major holidays and all the main appreciation days. And it might be a good way to just, you know, add some data into your kind of celebrations or festivities at school. Games. This is where we got very cool for a federal government agency. These are actually really fun. They are, you know, especially if you just kind of got a few minutes that you want to fill, if you want to have a moment to breathe, but still have your students learning or have your kid at home doing something, you know, useful for a few minutes, kind of on their own. These are really simple. They're very easy. They really do work for most ages. You've got information about counting the way. The memory game still gets me. I've been doing this for a while and I still struggle with the memory game, so that one's challenging. Population bracketology. We started doing this during the Sweet 16, I think for basketball, like a decade ago, and it's ranking cities. And I am still wrong about this one all the time. So we'll ask you, which city do you think has the most population? And you try to get them all right. And it's fun because you'll be wrong, I assume, like me, more than you would think so, or maybe I'm just not very good at it. For the younger kids, we have coloring pages, which are actually really cute. They kind of walk through how a census is done. So this is your house, this is somebody else's house, and just similar to the state facts for students we were just looking at. There's a statistics in schools quiz game, and then a storybook. So just a couple things here, great resources, especially for your younger kids, quick and easy for everyone to do. Historical documents and images. This one's fun and probably mostly focused for the older children. But these are, like I said, we've been doing this whole census thing for a while now. It has everything from, you know, literally parts of the Constitution to here's a political cartoon. We have maps, information about different populations that were enumerated over time. Anything that we did, like a unique census. So here's the 1937 unemployment census, certainly topical. The maps are really cool too. So these, you know, in a lot of cases were hand drawn back in the day, and they're just really interesting and really fascinating looking at those over time. So here's you have the population from 1790 and 1800. Got the original Census Act, the signatures for the Declaration of Sentiments, James Madison's remarks, and then, you know, some different articles and things like that. So a lot of times these will be linked back to activities. So these are usually, you know, there will be an activity that these are included in, but they also can stand on their own. When you click on any of these images or documents, below them will have the list of all the activities that are related to them as well. So if you think that this is a really cool, I love this wording, filling up the census paper. If you think that's a really cool cartoon, it'll be really easy to find the resources that go along with it. They all tie back together. Okay, Kahoot. I'm not going to spend too much time here because we're going to play this game and it's really fun, but we have a lot of different games here. They're broken into 3 categories. This is something you'll probably just have to go walk through yourself. But there are multiple, and I think there's like 10, Jessica, correct me if I'm wrong. I think there's around 10 different games within each of these topics. So whatever you're looking for, whatever you're studying, whatever your students are interested in, you can find something here. Again, we're going to play one of these, but they're simple, they're easy. They actually teach you a lot, even if you're getting all the questions wrong, like I was when I was going through some of these. You learn a lot while you're doing them, even if you kind of didn't have the knowledge before. Really great way to integrate this into your classroom, make it interactive for the kids. Learn about the decennial census. This one, like I said, this whole program was made to support the decennial census. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time going through that now, just because we have 6 years before we really start ramping up for the next one. But a lot of times, the data sources we have and the activities that we have link back to decennial census data. So if, especially with your older kids, if you're doing regression analysis or you're doing something very serious, these are great resources to understand really how did these numbers come to be? Like, where do these numbers come from? What are you enumerating? Who are you enumerating? great information about like how the questionnaire changed over time. While certainly population has kind of been a standard and age and sex, there were different questions that were asked during different decennials. And it's interesting to look at the year and what questions we were asking, because a lot of times you can tie back, why those questions were being asked at the time. Maps. Maps. Like I said, geography and maps are really the baseline of everything we do with the census. So when we tabulate people or households or businesses, we're tabulating them to an area, right? So you need to know that there is not just that there is a business that exists, you need to know where that business is in order to make it relevant to anybody looking at this data. It's also a key to how we tabulate our data. So these are, like I said, we have maps going back to 1790. There are interactive maps here. There are information on, urbanization, different centers of population. We don't have time to go through all these, but I really suggest that you come take a look at this page because there's a lot of really cool material here. For those of you who might have received these really cool big wall maps in the past from Census, the digital versions are here. You can certainly print those out, download them, use them for your students. And then we've got older maps as well. So if you want to do an exploration of changes over time, you can do that here as well. Monthly highlights. Let's look at this one. So it is May, which snuck up on me. It is almost the end of the school year, and I'm not joking when I say I did not see it coming. We were doing all this teacher appreciation and kind of wrapping up the school year, and it just seems like it came up quick. So this is May. There's definitely, like I said, we try to bring everything together and highlight what would be easy to work into your classroom at the time. It'll save you kind of the pain of going through everything and trying to decide, like, what should I try to bring in right now? If you don't have a specific topic or subject that needs supplementing, you just want something that brings data into your classroom. So here we have Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, which is in May. We have Mother's Day fun facts. So, that's another good one to send home with the kids. Make sure nobody forgets the Mother's Day coming. Try to keep them out of trouble. Here we have an activity, a Kahoot game that is specifically related to Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. This is a really cool one. Jessica and I played it just the other day. I actually would have loved to share it during this webinar, but it's a little bit too long, but it's got some really great questions about, just businesses and people and changes in population for those specific populations. It's a really good one. Information, there's a 5-minute warm-up challenge along those same lines. Graduation season, that's another one that snuck up on me. So obviously people are graduating from high school, from college, first grade in my case. My child's graduating from first grade, thinks it's a very big deal. So there's a lot of resources tied back to educational attainment in school. So there's resources about correlating educational attainment and income. So if you are trying to encourage your students to further their education, this might be an activity to bring into the classroom. There's lots of activities and resources there. It also looks at changes over time. So what was the percentage of the population that had a bachelor's degree in, 2000 compared to 2021. We're going to specifically look at that resource here in just a few minutes. National Small Business Week, we just passed that one, but there's a lot of great data here, a lot of resources focused on businesses and changes over time here, because we are most famous probably for counting humans, but we have a lot of censuses and surveys that focus on businesses, so that information is here as well. Teacher Appreciation Week. One more day here, depending on where you are, you might celebrate at a slightly different time. We're going to go through this a higher degree in one of our exercises here in a few minutes, but that's a really great one to work into your classroom as well. That one shows those changes over time. National Bike to Work Day. This is the activity that we're going to go through with a fine-tooth comb here in a little bit, looking at how people get to work in different areas of the country and doing a comparison for those different geographies. It's a really fun one. It's a in-depth, but still, really fun. It suits all different ages as well. Armed Forces Day is coming up on May 20th. We've got a 5-minute warm-up here. And then at the very bottom, you'll see a place to sign up for our newsletter. I really suggest that you do this. Again, we'll send out a monthly newsletter saying, hey, here are the activities that we're highlighting for this month that specifically relate to this month. This is the place to find it. Back to the top, we are almost through our resources, and then we're going to do our knowledge checks. Videos. I was surprised with how much material is here. It's been a while actually since I'd visited this page. I thought I just kind of understood what videos we have. There's a lot more material here, and let me tell you, some of these have been around for a while, but they are absolutely excellent. So here is the apportionment machine that I was talking about earlier. Really great. These are like 3 minutes explanation of how the seats are apportioned among the states. For those of you who have been around a while, you probably know our friend Eric, who did several of these videos. These are some of my favorites too. So answering the 3 questions of statistics, and it was really funny. I'm a statistician. Until I saw this video, I really hadn't thought about it in the same way that it's presented here. I think it does a really an amazing job of explaining, why statistics. 3 minutes, the 3 statistical analysis, and then if we scroll down just a little bit more, basics of data visualizations, and then history of the Census Bureau and things like that. This one's really interesting too. It talks about how big is it and how do you describe how big something is by comparing it to other things. So a great resource, a great thing to share with your classroom. Like I said, I actually learned a lot from these, and maybe more specifically learned how to better explain them and better understand really what's at the core of some of these concepts. The visualizations are often worked into the activities or some of the warm-ups that we have here. These are just cooler ways at looking at data, and they are very child-friendly, very human-friendly, so they don't get so far in the weeds. It's much more interesting than a spreadsheet. So you'll see these come up. You can certainly come here and just look at them as resources, but you'll also see these coming up in the monthly highlights, in the monthly newsletter, in order to highlight what's happening at the time. But it just is a much more fun and interesting way to bring numbers and data into the classroom and keep kids engaged. Okay, last but not least, our warm-up activities. This one's fairly new, at least it's new since I've not been working with the program, which has now been a while. But these are just 5 minutes. They're called warm-up activities, but they're really easy to just kind of integrate into whatever you're working on. We're going to do one of these in just a moment, but I wanted to highlight there's a lot here. And again, they're quick, they're 5 minutes. Oftentimes there's a word bank or kind of multiple choice. So it's something that's really easy for your classroom to do. And most of them have a really good discussion around them. So if you're looking, we'll talk about these, but 5-minute challenge of, the educational attainment. Not only is it a great 5-minute exercise that does a comparison of charts and graphs, it also can lead to a lot of different conversations based on those activities. Okay, I think that was the last one here, yes. Standards we have listed here depending on where you live, what kind of school you teach in. I know that there are requirements that you may have to focus on a standard. It also, each of our activities will tell you what standards it's aligned with. That might be just an easy way to, kind of search for what you're looking for as well. But here's an overview and then specifics of each of the different subjects and what standards we include. In the activities of like, okay, this one aligns with this standard, this one aligns with this standard. That's all here. And then our About section. I'm not going to spend much time on this because I'm talking so much about all of these different topics, but this has information about the program benefits. Census 101 for students is definitely worthwhile if you're introducing this these kind of topics brand new to your classroom. Your teacher guides and tools are here. Most of them are also linked within the activities and other things as well, but if you want to find them, they're here. Here's your newsroom, information about partnering with SIS, which I'll ask Jessica to speak on for just a moment at the very end, and then information about how to contact us. So with that, let's do a couple of knowledge checks. So again, there's really just 4 tabs on our website. I'm not going to ask you anything too terribly difficult. Actually, before I do that, are there any questions that I should address? I don't have the ability to keep an eye on chat and do this. Is there anything I should address before we go into the question and answer on the challenge, the exercise questions?
Hi, Lacey. No, there's no outstanding questions at this time. People are looking for links and giving some positive feedback. So I think we're all
Okay,
set for
cool.
now.
Excellent. Okay, this is the most fun part, guys. So buckle up. This is going to be the most exciting part of the entire webinar. I guess I should put this up. It'd be nice if I shared what I was talking about. Okay, so here's your knowledge check. It's all going to be from that website we were just on, so census.gov/schools. There are 3 different exercises. What I'm going to ask you to do is, well, I'm going to just put it up, but when you have the answers, you can put them in the Q&A. There are three answers to this first one, and if you want to include your email, the first 10 people that get the right answers, I will send you stickers. I will personally hand address you an envelope and send you these really cool stickers that have our website and iHeart Census data, and another one I think says Data Geek. They're all really fun and popular. So hopefully that'll keep you guys excited. The first thing I would like you to do, practice exercise number 1. Please go find this specific math activity. So it's National Bike to Work Day. And then the 3 questions are, what level of Bloom taxonomy is it? What is the suggested grade level? And what is the approximate time required? I'm going to give you 2 minutes to go find those things, enter your answers into the Q&A, and then we'll actually walk through this activity. This will be the activity that we walk through step by step together. So with that, ready, get set, and go. And Lynette's right, these stickers are really nice. Nicole and Lynette, are we getting lots of answers in the Q&A? How's it looking?
I see one answer.
Okay, so I guess we're going to need that time. Very good. Might extend it another minute. If you guys wouldn't mind letting me know when we hit approximately 10. I want to make sure I didn't know exactly how long it would take.
Okay. Do you get one? Does that person get 10 stickers?
Maybe. Okay, it has been 2 minutes. I'm hoping that, hoping that the stickers would lead to some excitement. Hopefully, the lack of response isn't because you weren't able to find these, but we're going to walk through it together, just so that this is a great way to just practice finding the activity, so that when you are on your own, you know how to do so. So going back to the website, here we are on our homepage. Under activities, so there's lots of different ways that you could find this. You can go to math here. We know that's a math activity. And you could simply scroll through until you find, I think it's all the way at the bottom. I think I did that just to make everybody suffer. I must have passed it. Well, well.
Down toward the bottom, Lacey.
Is it? Okay. It's like-
Yep. Right there, right above the statistical
Okay,
question.
thank you. I was like, did I ask a question? And there's no answer. Thank you, Jessica.
Yep.
Okay, so here it is. It has a different picture than the one I had on the PowerPoint, so I confused myself. So here's your two-way table, and this is the one we're going to walk through step by step, just so you see what is in an activity, both the teaching and student version. But let's answer the questions really quickly that were on that slide. So congratulations to whoever's getting your stickers for these answers. The first question was, what is a taxonomy, Bloom's taxonomy level? And so you'll find that right here. So analyzing. What is the suggested grade level? And here we hear, suggested grade level is 8th grade. And then what is the approximate time required? And we have 60 to 120 minutes. This is one of our longer activities, or at least, on the slightly longer side, but you can certainly break it down into different parts. All of these are also made to be modified. However, they need to be appropriate for your classroom and your specific learning environment. So there's the answers to those questions. And then let's look at the actual activity. So you scroll down to the bottom. Here we have the teacher version and the student version. They're obviously very similar, look very familiar to you. But we're going to look at the teacher version just because it kind of has the student version plus all the extra information that you get to help facilitate the activity. Okay. These are really clean, really crisp, really straightforward. They are great to scroll, zoom in just a little bit. Oh. They are really easy to project in your classroom. They also make a really nice download or a printout, if just depending on what works best for your environment. But here it is, talking about who rides their bike to work and who walks. And this particular activity does a comparison of 2 different cities. But it'll tell you first, the learning objectives are students will be able to interpret a 2-way table. And then students will be able to describe possible associations between 2 categories. Here's your activity description. You're going to be using data from the 2019 American Community Survey. The American Community Survey is our biggest survey, our biggest household survey, so you'll see that a lot throughout these activities. You'll compare how men and women in 2 different cities use non-motorized transportation to get to work. Again, here's your information about suggested grade levels, time, learning objectives, topics, and skills that are taught. Your materials required. Again, these are, we try to keep this really simple, but here's everything you would need to know. Here are the standards to which this aligns, just so you have that information in case it makes it easier to decide which activity is best for you to work into your classroom. Here are your guidelines for assessment and instruction, and then also Bloom's taxonomy. And your teacher's notes, my very favorite part. So I think for me, this is the place I come to really understand the scope and really what the kids would need to understand in order to be doing this activity. The overviews are great. They're just very simple. This one gives you a lot more in-depth information. So for this activity specifically, you need to understand a categorical variable, condition and relative frequency, and then just frequency in general. We make sure we repeat that one. Joint relative frequency, marginal relative frequency. I think you can see a theme here, a quantitative variable, relative frequency, and then a 2-way table. Scroll down just a little bit. During the activity, it walks you through exactly what you need to know about during the activity, after the activity. Each of these also have extension ideas, which is awesome. So you can either send kids home with homework, or if it's a real hit and everybody seems really interested in the topic, or it was something that was fun, you can add on to it with these different extension ideas. Here's your student activity. You can also access the student activity from the main page where we just were, but if you're already in here, there's another way to access that activity. Your student learning objectives, not objections, your objectives for student learning, and then just an outline of what you're going to be doing while you go through the process. So This one's a pretty cool one. So you've got information about how people get to work in both Cambridge, Massachusetts and Columbia, South Carolina. It seems very straightforward, but a lot of these really cover major statistical concepts. And if you can really grasp them, even though the data is relatively simple, the analysis and the comparison is really something that is impactful. I love these options here. The student answer will vary, but may include, fewer workers bike to work in Columbia. But if you get down to the bottom, these are my favorite. The data didn't include workers who rode a skateboard or a scooter to work. I feel like that's something that my son would say. Were people who ran to work counted as people who walked to work? And I think the answer is yes. But I just love you can tell that there was a lot of feedback from, actual students in classrooms and teachers who spend a lot of time in classrooms too with these examples. Here are the answers to the questions. So, what percentage of men and women, things along those lines. Here's your questions and answers. You scroll through this. Here's your relative frequency. So the percentage of men who walked versus biked. So you got 67 and then 33. Same with women, 82% compared to 18, and then men and women combined. And then you've got that for Columbia, South Carolina as well. So again, really straightforward. It has everything built into it that you could possibly need. If you can read the teacher's notes when you go into this, you'll be completely prepared. There's not going to be any thing that's not included in any of these outlines. And then here's your final questions and answers for the classroom. So luckily, you've got that all built in here. Again, you don't have to do any of the analysis yourself. We have those answers for you for each of the questions that are provided. The student version is very similar, clearly. It just doesn't have the answers. So again, just remember that if you're assigning homework, they may be able to look this up themselves depending on how savvy they are and what their age is. But it's really a great learning tool. Any questions about the activities? That's as in-depth as we're going to walk through a specific activity. There are a lot of different subjects. There are a lot of different grade levels and age ranges, but they are all laid out the same way. They're all very straightforward, and they have the same sections, the same kind of feel, touch, and navigation. Questions about activities? Going once, going twice. Anything in the chat, guys, or anything in the Q&A?
No, nothing about what you're going over right now.
Okay, is there anything else that I should address, or we're good for now?
No, I think we're answering in the chat, in the
Okay,
question
perfect.
and answer section. So
Okay,
good.
very good, thank you. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna walk through, we've got one warm-up activity we'll do, and then we will play the really cool Kahoots game, and then we will wrap up with any questions that I have not answered during the duration here. So back to this slide. Okay, I'm hoping for more sticker distribution with this one. This is a fun fact. So I want you to please go find the fun facts on our website, specifically the one from Mother's Day. We've actually stumbled across this one a couple of times already today. And then send in the Q&A what are under these two blocks. So I've got a red block up there, which has the date, and then a green block that has another fact. So if you can find those two, put them in the Q&A. Again, I'll give you 2 minutes, and then we will walk through all of this together. Ready, set, and go. Okay, 30 more seconds. I really feel like I should have had the Jeopardy theme song built into this presentation. The quiet is unnerving. All right, 10 minutes to get your sticker answers in.
The answers are coming in. I would hum for you,
Are
but I
they?
don't hum very well. They are coming in. Yes, many
No, I think that-
answers.
Okay, I was going to say, I apologize, guys. I think I even struggled to find the first one. So maybe that was just, I made it too hard for even myself, the first one. So I'm glad that I'll be busy addressing envelopes over the next few days. Good deal. Okay, that is 2 minutes. So let's go back to the website. Okay, still had this one up. We'll click off that activity. Okay, so here under resources, we're going to look at our fun facts. And this one, I know exactly where it is, and it's not hidden like the biking activity. So under fun facts, right here at the very top, here are your Mother's Day fun facts. We click on this, it'll take us to the 2-pager, which again, prints out really nicely, or is a great download. Here's the fun facts, and here's also the teaching guide. We're gonna walk through both of those really quickly. But first, let's get to the answers to the, the sticker prizes, which are actually really cool stickers. Again, every now and then the Census Bureau gets really cool and trendy, and I feel like we nailed the stickers. So here's Mother's Day, May 14th. To any of you who need to be reminded, or this might be a really nice thing to send home with your students tomorrow so that they don't get in trouble or their families aren't in trouble for forgetting. So coming up fast here, May 14th. So there's your first answer. And then the next one is the green square was over in 1914. Congress made the second Sunday in May Mother's Day. So there you go. There are your 2 answers. But here's what our fun facts look like. This one is 2 pages. No, I'm sorry, this is 1 page. It's 2 pages with the teacher guide, I think. Yes, okay. So it just has some basic information about, mothers and children, information about school. We really do try to bring in a variety of data. So it's, interesting and try to change up the sources, change up the different angles here to make sure that we're making it, as appealing to a mass audience as possible. So this is what it looks like. Let's go back and look at the teacher guide as well. And these are really straightforward and really simple. This is the one that's 2 pages. I knew something was 2 pages. So about fun facts just has, the things we've already talked about here, using Mother's Day fun facts in the classroom, information about this one's, fine for any grade level, but it will tell you if it's, appropriate for older or younger kids. Information about Mother's Day gifts. I think this comes from some of our county business patterns. And then different things that you can do within your classroom depending on the age of the students that you have. So you've got information for elementary school level. You could do a bar graph practice or make a card for mom. Again, keep everyone out of trouble as much as possible. You've got your middle school level. You could do an advertisement or look at furthering your education, because there's some data about that on the infographic on the fact sheet. And then for high school, you can have a discussion or do a community focus. So again, all of this is here for you. There are links, as you can see, to other resources as well. So specifically in the high school, we have a read the following article, and there's a link. That article will probably also be in the resources as well. Again, these things tie together. We tried to make it easy to access them. I was going to say assess. To access them no matter where you are. There's lots of different ways to get to them. So any questions about the fun fact, the pages? They're pretty straightforward. I think that one should be pretty easy. Okay, practice exercise number 3. I totally lied to you just a second ago when I said the next thing was Kahoot. We have one more practice exercise, and then we're going to play the Kahoot game, and then we're going to wrap up. But this one's quick as well. Go ahead and get out of this and get back to the top. Okay, back to the PowerPoint, more sticker opportunities coming your way. Okay, the next question is, so we're going to cover all of the main resources here with these 3 exercises. I would like you to please go find the a warm-up. It's a warm-up activity, and it's for a higher degree. We're specifically highlighting this one this month for Teacher Appreciation Month. Teacher Appreciation Week, which falls in the month of May. And there are questions on this warm-up activity, and I don't have them listed here because I'd like you to go find them and then just answer those questions in the Q&A. I'm going to give you 3 minutes, and it's normally a 5-minute activity for the kids, but I don't want anyone falling asleep and getting bored with this. So we'll do this for 3 minutes, and then we'll answer it and then move on to the Kahoot game. All right, ready, get set, and go.
The answers are slowly coming in, Lacey. You have 3.
Okay, good deal. This one's a little more in depth, so I'm not surprised it's taken a few more minutes. We still have about 1.5 minutes. Okay, 30 more seconds, everybody. Okay, pencils down, or the digital equivalent. So they're just 3 minutes. It's funny, I actually just did these answers myself. So let's go find this specifically on the website and then look through the answers. Okay, so this is under resources, and all of our warm-up activities are right here. Again, you can still find these throughout if they're associated with a activity or something else, but this is where you can find the entire group. And I believe, okay, good, this is at the very top as well. So here we go, right here. Here's your higher degree. If you click on this, it'll take you to the entire page. It's a little bit blurry here if you don't download it. The way to download it is right here, download the warm-up activity. So we'll do that. And there you go. Make it a little bit bigger. Okay, and Jessica, actually, let me ask a question that I just realized I don't know the answer to. Is there an answer sheet for this, or are we just hoping we're smart enough to know the answers? Because I just did this myself, and I'm hoping that I don't embarrass myself in front of hundreds of people right now, but.
No, we do not have an answer sheet.
Okay, well, let's see how this plays out. Okay, so The first question let me scroll down so you can all see it in case you didn't find it while we were looking. And I do realize that some people probably don't have access to a separate browser. You might be watching this on a device and you weren't able to participate in this. So here's your questions. Here's your questions, and let's hope that I got the answers right. Let me zoom a little bit. Okay, the first one, did each level of educational attainment increase, decrease, or stay the same every 5 years between 2001 and 2021? So I have increase. I just realized I actually did not do the every 5 year thing. So it increased, 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 increased. Okay, I think I'm safe there. So increased. Anybody else disagree with that? Because I would believe that I did this in a rush and could be wrong. But that's what I have for the answer for the first one. For number two, which degree had the largest increase from 2001 to 2021? So in 2001, 31.5% of people had a bachelor's degree, and in 2021, it was 52.8%. So a really big increase there, and that is the largest percent increase among the types of degrees. Which degree had the smallest increase from 2001 to 2021? And I have professional degree, which again, I hope is right. So it went from 2.6 to 3.4, so an increase of 0.8. Again, there were certainly increases across the board, but those are the answers I came up with. Any one of my colleagues want to tell me I'm wrong, I will believe you. Okay, hopefully I did not just lie to everybody on this webinar. Sounds good. Okay, so those are the three activities. So now you know how to find, the three exercises. You know how to find an activity. We walked through that. You know how to find a warm-up, and you know how to find the fun facts as well. And we've looked at the teacher versions of the fun facts and the student and teacher version of the activities as well. Okay, last but not least, we have a 4-minute Kahoot game, and that still leaves us 5 minutes for Q&A. All right, get ready. Here is the game that we're going to play. Now, like I said, I think most of you have probably played Kahoot in class or at least familiar with it. You can either use that QR code to scan from your phone if you're not using your phone to watch this webinar. You can also use that pin. And I'm going to, and then hopefully we'll get some people joining. There we go. Hi, John and Kim. Very cute little icons too. Thanks, guys, for joining. I'll give everyone about 30 more seconds to join. And then the winner, the top, nice, I love this. Here we go, this is exciting. The top group here, we will send you stickers as well. So once you are on our leaderboard, just send us a Q&A also and let us know your email address. I'm gonna reach out to everyone via email, ask you for a mailing address, and I will get those stickers out to you in the next week. Ooh, this is exciting, all right. Jessica, do people get to pick their emoji, or as an emoji, or their
Yeah, you can
avatar?
customize it. Yeah,
They're
you can
cute.
customize.
Good job, guys.
Mhm.
It's a good group.
I think it gives you a default one, but then you have the option to go in and change it out.
I love them. They're so cute. Okay, very cool. Again, I know I'm probably the only person here who's new to this, but it's I was really enjoying it. Okay, 5 more seconds. Got a good
Also,
group
Lacey,
here.
another note is if people let their phones lock up, it might have you like rejoin it. So I would just make sure your phone doesn't lock up on you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm learning. Tom, I like your sunglasses. Jessica, I love the floral crown on your bunny. Okay, here we go. All right, I'm going to go with your start. I'm going to read the questions just in case you're looking at this on a small phone, so that in case you can't see them. But here we go. All right, from roller coasters to chocolate bars, we're learning about U.S. businesses. In 3, 2, 1. Okay, time to show off those pearly whites. How many U.S. dentist offices were there in 2021? We've got 15 seconds. The child looks a little terrified in the picture. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so let's say, the correct answer was actually 135,000 333 exactly. So we had 5 people get that one right. Good job. I would have no idea. Honestly, I would have had no idea. So there we go. Very nice. All right, 5 people got that one correct. Check the leaderboard. We'll go to the next question. Okay, Jessica nailed that. Diana, Kim, Kristen, and Tom. Good job, team. Okay, you're the top 5 right now. Very exciting. Let's move on to the next one. Roller coasters and cotton candy, oh my. How many U.S. amusement parks were there in 2021? You have 15 seconds. Three, 2, and 1. Okay, the correct answer was actually the least often chosen answer. The correct answer was 613. So we had 3 different people get that one correct. Let's see who it was. Okay, Kim, you're at the top of the heap. Very exciting. Kim, Kristen, Jessica, Diana, and Tom. Okay, next question. There are only 9, so it'll be pretty quick. Would you like fries with your burger? How many U.S. fast food restaurants were there in 2021? And you have 16 seconds remaining. And 3, 2, 1. Okay, the correct answer, 256,375, which actually 4 people got. So let's see who that was. Let's see what the scoreboard, the leaderboard looks like now. Okay, we've got a new contender here with a really cute, looks like an ice cream cone on his head. So very good. All right, so Kim, you are just crushing everything. 2,719 points. All right, Kim is the one to beat. All right, next question. Dolls, cars, and trucks galore. How many U.S. toy stores were there in 2021? You have 17 seconds remaining. All right. The correct answer, 7,962, which, hey, that was the most chosen answer. So here we go. Let's see what the leaderboard looks like now. Ooh, we've got some movement here. But Kim just really getting everything right here. And Kristen right behind her, too. You guys are doing awesome. Okay, so we have a couple new people on the board. And let's go to the next. We have, this is the 5th of 9. Do you see many, you don't see many of these anymore. How many U.S. video, disc, and rental stores were there in 2021? And you have 15 seconds remaining. I have a colleague who will know where each of these are, however many there are left. Okay, let's see. The correct answer, wow, actually, I'm surprised, 1,169. Only 2 people got that one correctly. I would have voted with the group, which was for the lowest. Let's see how this changes the leaderboard. Kim, still at the very top, very impressive. Okay, here we go, guys, coming to crunch time. Next up, I think second to last question. Which animals and plants are your favorite? How many U.S. zoos and botanical gardens were there in 2021? And you have 17 seconds left. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, the correct answer, 711. Wouldn't have probably gotten that one correct either, but we did have 4 people that did get that one right. Let's see how this affects the scoreboard. All right, Kim just getting every single one of these. All right, so we've got a pretty steady group here at the top, but there's still time for upsets. Our 7th question is, chocolate bars, gummy bears, oh so sweet. How many U.S. candy and nut stores were there in 2021? You've got 15 seconds. I should have mentioned probably at some point, so I'll do it now. All of this data comes from County Business Patterns, which is one of our main economic surveys. And all of this is highlighted this month because it is, I think it's Small Business Week is coming up. So that's why we're focused on this one today. And look at this. Okay, the correct answer, 3,227, and 7 people got that one correctly. So let's see how that affects the board here. Okay, a little bit of movement, a lot of familiar faces or emoji faces there. Very good, we have 2 more. And we'll be finishing up actually right on time. Next. You'll need to take care of your furry friends. How many U.S. pet and pet supply stores were there in 2021? I love watching these answers come in so fast. You have 10 more seconds. Three, 2, 1. All right, the correct answer, 9,684. And we had 2 people get that one right. Let's see how that affects the scoreboard. Not too much. Okay, Diana moved up. You're on the rise here, but otherwise pretty much the same faces. One more question. Last but not least, do you like chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry? How many U.S. ice creams and frozen dessert makers were there in 2021? You have 16 seconds. All right. The correct answer is 442, and 5 people got that right. Let's see the final results here. Diane, I love the little dance. Tom, very good. And Kim, our front runner the whole time, managed to hold out. Very good, guys. Please send in the Q&A your email address if you were in the top 5 here, and we will send you stickers as well. Nicole, I'm going to assume because there weren't a lot of questions throughout that we don't have anything pressing. We've got 1 more minute just in case there's anything that needs to be cleared up. But otherwise, is there anything pressing? Otherwise, we will just wrap up.
I think you can wrap up, Lacey.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much. I hope that this was useful. I hope that you have resources and tools you can walk away from. And I hope that you use these resources going forward. So with that, Kim, I will turn it back over to you with 30 seconds left.
Thank you, Lacey.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Lacey, for this excellent webinar. It was a lot of fun. Before we conclude, I'd like to thank everyone who played a role in today's webinar. And also, of course, thank you to you, our audience, for spending your time with us this afternoon. Please take a moment to fill out the evaluation by following the link provided in the chat. Look out for the recording and the PowerPoint information from this workshop on the Census Academy by visiting census.gov/academy. I'll remind you those will post within 30 business days. This brings us to a close, so we thank you again and hope you have a great afternoon.
This concludes today's session. You may disconnect at this time.